Here's something they don't teach in business school. Every startup that became a billion-dollar company, Airbnb, Stripe, Amazon, DoorDash, they all started by doing something that couldn't scale. Something that any rational investor would call inefficient. Something that, on paper, made absolutely no sense. And that wasn't a mistake. It was the strategy. In 2013, Paul Graham, the man who co-founded Y Combinator, the accelerator behind Airbnb, Dropbox, and Stripe, published an essay. Just a few thousand words posted on his personal website. He called it, "Do Things That Don't Scale," and it quietly changed how the smartest people in Silicon Valley think about building companies. The idea sounds almost absurd. We live in a world that worships efficiency, automation, viral growth. Every startup pitch promises hockey stick curves and total addressable markets in the billions. But Graham's thesis was devastatingly simple. The founders who win at the beginning are the ones who are willing to do the work that doesn't scale. Not because it's easy, not because it's comfortable, but because it's the only honest path to learning what your product actually needs to become. Let's talk about Airbnb. Today it's worth over $60 billion, hosting millions of guests in every country on Earth. But in 2008, Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia were struggling San Francisco designers who couldn't afford their own rent. Their first product? Air mattresses on their apartment floor. When they eventually got into Y Combinator, the company had a real problem. Their New York listings were live, but the photos were terrible. Dark, blurry, shot on flip phones. Nothing that made you want to sleep in a stranger's home. So Paul Graham told them something direct. Go to New York, meet your hosts, take better photos. Chesky and Gebbia flew to New York at their own expense. They knocked on doors, they introduced themselves, and then they borrowed a professional camera and photographed every listing in the city. This was not in the business plan. There was no way to do it at scale. It was awkward, expensive, and time-consuming. And it worked. Bookings in New York doubled almost immediately, but more importantly, they learned something that no survey could have told them. The hosts weren't just renting rooms, they were sharing their lives. The photos weren't just marketing, they were a signal of trust. That insight, born from two founders knocking on strangers' doors in Brooklyn, eventually became the professional photography program that helped Airbnb expand to 100 cities, and then 1,000. Now consider Stripe, the payments company that processes hundreds of billions of dollars a year, started with a technique so personal it has its own name. Patrick Collison, who co-founded Stripe with his brother John, called it the Collison installation. Here's what it was. When a new developer signed up for Stripe, either Patrick or John would personally go to their office, sit down next to them, and walk them through the entire integration. Not a help article, not a chatbot. A founder in person at your desk getting you live. This sounds completely insane for a payments infrastructure company, and yet it was genius. Because sitting next to a developer while they set up your product is the most efficient product research method ever invented. You see exactly where they hesitate, exactly which error message confuses them, exactly what they assume the product can do that it can't. Every Collison installation became a roadmap, and the product got better, faster, clearer, until the word spread through the developer community without a single ad that Stripe just worked in a way that nothing else did. So why does this work? Why do the most successful companies in the world start by doing things that seem like a waste of time? There are 3 reasons, and they compound. First, genuine customer intimacy. When you're physically in the room with your customer, watching them use your product, you collect data that no dashboard can show you. The hesitation before they click, the question they were too embarrassed to type in a help form, the workaround they built because your product almost does what they need. This is the raw material of a great product. You can only get it by being there. Second, word of mouth that money can't manufacture. When Airbnb gave a host a professional photo shoot, that host didn't just stay. They told every host they knew. When Stripe sat next to a developer for an hour, that developer went back to their Slack channel and said, "These guys are different. You can't buy this kind of referral. You have to earn it, and you earn it by doing something that costs you more than it costs the customer. Third, the kind of conviction that survives chaos. Founders who've personally delivered the product, answered the support tickets, done the sales calls. They know their business in a way that's impossible to fake. When things get hard, and they always do, that conviction is the thing that keeps the company together. So here's how you actually use this. 3 rules. Rule 1. Do the thing yourself before you delegate it. If you're building a delivery startup, make deliveries. If you're building a software tool, handle onboarding personally. If you're building a marketplace, curate both sides by hand. You need to feel the friction before you can design it away. Rule 2. Be absurdly specific about who your first customer is. Airbnb didn't start for travelers. It started for conference attendees in San Francisco who couldn't find last-minute accommodation. Stripe didn't start for businesses. It started for developers who found the existing payment SDKs too painful to use. The narrower your target, the faster you learn what actually matters. The more you try to serve everyone from the start, the less you learn about anyone. Rule 3. Resist scale until the experience is genuinely repeatable. This is the hardest rule. When a few things start working, the pressure to hire, to automate, to expand, it's enormous. But the founders who resist that pressure long enough to truly understand their product are the ones who scale to something real. As Paul Graham put it, the unscalable things you do at the start aren't a phase to get through. They're the foundation of everything that comes after. The greatest lesson in startup history isn't about growth hacking or viral loops or finding product-market fit on a spreadsheet. It's this. The most scalable companies in the world were built by founders willing to do the work that didn't scale. They knocked on doors, they sat in offices, they took photos, they made the calls. They did things that felt inefficient and impossible to systemize, because that's exactly where the real learning lived. And when they finally did scale, they had something no competitor could copy. They actually knew their customer. If this kind of thinking resonates with you, subscribe to Founder Fuel. Every week, we go deep on the stories, the decisions, and the real lessons that separate companies that last from companies that don't. Subscribe now, and we'll see you in the next one.